What are you specifically looking for? Is there something out there that you kind of have an inkling about that you think is there?
I was minority leader for many years. When members call, they sometimes call your house phone, the public phone. Sometimes they call your personal cell. If they use a house email address, it's a public document. If they use a house cell phone or a house phone, it's a public document. If they use campaign activities for activities that don't fall under the code for political activities as defined by the Ohio Elections Commission, then there could be allegations set forth as well. I find it interesting that literally from the moment the Highway Patrol and the security of the Rife Center discovered Representative Martin passed out in Speaker Batchelder's car, members as far away as Medina knew what occurred. Yet 1 year later, almost to the date, 1 year and a few weeks later, Representative Mecklenburg is arrested for a DUI, but certainly as this whole sad chapter is unfolding before us, it appears there are more activities that some could allege to be criminal that no one knew in Speaker Batchelder's leadership team. Representative Ron Amstutz is asleep in Medina, Ohio, and gets a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning to inform him that I'm sorry?
Amstutz,
Worcester.
Worcester. He wasn't having
Worcester, Ohio. Yes, Worcester, Ohio. Excuse me. Worcester, Ohio. Receives a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning informing him that a representative has fallen asleep intoxicated on the car. We did not yet know that Representative Martin was intoxicated because according to the written reports thus far, phone calls were made by whom we do not know yet when Representative Martin was discovered, not when he was processed by the Highway Patrol and released into the care of Mr. Ditto. 1 year later, Representative Mecklenburg on Good Friday is arrested, and no one in Speaker Batchelder's leadership team knows. No one at all. Had the events of Representative Martin not occurred, I could take Representative Batchelder at his word. But because Representative Martin was discovered and more than 14, 15 months went by before we became aware of these activities, it's hard to take some in the Republican caucus at their word. And a Freedom of Information request allows them to prove it. When they say, gosh, we just didn't know that Representative Mecklenburg, a leader in our caucus, one of the most outspoken members of our caucus, literally taking the lead on a number of important issues in the spring of 2011, was arrested in southern Indiana in the parking lot of the Holiday Inn Express, less than a quarter of a mile from a casino and an adult entertainment location. Now, if this was my first week in Columbus, I would be naive enough to take them at their words. But I came to know my members very well as the minority leader and as a member of the legislature, and I hope the same is true for the leadership of the Republican caucus.
Visit the location. I mean, the fact that one arrest occurred in Indiana by Indiana troopers and another incident occurred right here on Capitol Square. I mean, isn't that right there a key element into as to why leadership may or may not have been told?
That's why I'm asking for additional information. And the truth will soon drips and drabs come out fully. For instance, who paid Representative Mecklenburg's bail? When did that bail? When was it paid? How was it paid? And was the person who paid the bail, did that person have any relationship with the House Republican caucus? Those are the kinds of questions we're asking, again, through public records requests in southern Indiana. Had there been a longer relationship between Representative Mecklenburg and his his travels down to southern Indiana. Did any other regional southwest members know that Representative Mecklenburg had the kind of troubles that we've since read about? Those questions, I think, should be answered. These are public officials. And Representative Mecklenburg, as you recall during many of his speeches, especially as it related to a woman's right to choose, always spoke about privacy and how the Constitution didn't afford that privacy to women in this case. And then literally days after his incident is discovered, again, several weeks after it actually occurred, he asks for privacy. That kind of hypocrisy does not go unnoticed.
Chris, you've alluded to what did they know and when did they know it. Have
Yes.
you called on Senator Jordan and Representative Martin to resign?
No, I didn't do that yet.
Do you think?
I think Joe asked me that, Jim.
Will you?
I don't know. I don't know. We don't know the facts. Driving under the influence is incredibly serious. At this point, allegation. He's been arrested for it. It's not been adjudicated. The collection of information thus far and the fact that Speaker Batchelder has not weighed in on this publicly, other than to show his concern, leads me to wait before coming to my final judgment. I do believe that there are additional pieces of information that have been purposely left out of this discussion, and we are in the process of trying to uncover those pieces of information.
You said others.
Others.
Sorry, you said there were others. Are there other names who you haven't mentioned who you believe or are asking public records information
Oh, sure. Yes.
on who
Yeah.
might have had DUI charges as well? There are
Sure.
rumors out there of other
Yes.
names.
I've had conversations with newspaper reporters that I'm not going to discuss here, where the newspaper reporters inform me that their papers are filing freedom of information requests. I've had discussions with liberal-leaning organizations, and those organizations are submitting freedom of information requests. So that is why I use the word others.
For the names of others. You have the names of others in order to file requests. People have to have their names. Do you have a list?
No. I do, but it's not a written list, and I certainly wouldn't share it with you.
Have you done any public records requests on the Chris Jordan case?
Yes.
Do you have a little sheet that'll tell us what you've requested on Mecklenburg?
We'll review it. It's not a public document unless it's received by the Sheriff's Department. We've requested any videotape, dash cam videotape, or whatever the proper terminology is, the tape, as well as any audio tapes that may have been taken by the responding officers, the sheriff deputies, as well as any other related information from previous stops or 911 calls as it relates to Senator Jordan. It was very difficult times with the Jordan family. I recognize that. There's a balance there between the pursuit of the truth and respecting one's privacy. It puts us in a tenuous position because, frankly, these are the kinds of issues that voters think about when they're making their decisions. And case in point, that's why no one knew about this until after the 2010 general election, and why Jarrod Martin skated to a victory without a serious opponent taking up this issue and other issues, because it didn't exist at that time.
Chris, the Delaware City Prosecutor's Office told me Friday they didn't believe that an additional audio tape existed. Is it your impression that law enforcement did have additional audio on Chris Jordan?
I don't know. That's why I asked. And I've also had additional conversations with county prosecutors and city prosecutors about the code and the presumption of arrest on a domestic violence call, and how the arresting or responding officer in this case has to be meticulous in his or her description of the events so as to leave the spouse in a position of safety if an arrest is not made. So I've had those additional discussions. My understanding is that much of that information will be made public in an appropriate time frame from the Delaware County officials and Delaware City officials. And I have no reason to believe otherwise. in this environment, you just can't take one's word for it. You just go collect the information and draw your conclusions.
But it is Ohio law that even if the spouse chooses not to go forward, that the law enforcement officers, if they see anything that they suspect suspicious, that they will
Yes.
file a report and make an arrest if they
Yes.
feel that's appropriate, even if the spouse says forget
Right. In the words of a Democratic county prosecutor, you have to err on the side of the allegation to remove the individual from any threat. And the words were real or perceived in this case.
Purely from a political standpoint, these three lawmakers, these three seats are all very solidly Republican. Is there any political advantage through resignation or through these other problems that these folks are having?
No, we will never know that answer, at least from a 2010 standpoint with Representative Martin. We won't know that from a 2012 standpoint because of Representative Mecklenburg's resignation. And I assume that as the maps are redrawn, steps will be taken to ensure that Senator Jordan continues to live in a very safe political district. But nonetheless, it is incumbent upon all of us to all of us, not just me, but all of us, to get at the truth, collect the facts, and make our own judgments.
The Speaker called for Representative Mecklenburg's resignation fairly quick. Are you surprised with a child endangerment?
I am surprised. I'm surprised knowing what Representative Batchelder said about Representative Mecklenburg and the facts as he knew them at that time, public facts that he knew at that time. He has not been as outspoken about the seriousness of Senator Jordan's allegations, as well as the arrest of Representative Martin with the juveniles in the car. I don't want to diminish the DUI. If there was no one in the car, you're a threat to everyone in public, obviously. But the collection of facts, I'm surprised that Speaker Batchelder has not been more outspoken. And I'm incredibly disappointed that public officials who have shown respect for the office of the Speaker were used by the Speaker and the Speaker's political staff to their advantage, they being the Speaker's political advantage and the Speaker's staff political advantage in 2010. When a responding officer from the Ohio State Highway Patrol or members of the security staff at the Rive Center respond and they find a member passed out on the minority leader's car. Again, you cannot write this kind of screenplay and get away with it. Literally passed out on their car. There's a certain amount of respect for the office. And so calls are made. Did you know this? Is there anything we can do? It's unfortunate. The Speaker knew and knows that there is videotape of the incident because the videotapes are there at the Rive garage. Every day I walked into the garage, you look up, you see the video, it's pointed outwards into the garage. We will get the video that's available. And to go as so far, to use campaign staff and public elected officials, put them in a situation where they're having to think about elections first rather than the safety of the public is deeply disappointing.